Hey guys, Clove here, and today I have sort of a interesting shader tutorial again. This one is going to be covering how to do overlays. It's pretty clear what is going on right here on my screen. You can see that I have this little like helmet overlay, almost like I'm wearing some kind of a Master Chief helmet. We're just going to do static overlays today, which this could be expanded. I'll show a little thing at the end, a little demonstration, but if you have a method for shader selectors, then you could expand this to have multiple overlays, make it like a real HUD that tells you information. But that is way too complicated to go over today, so we're just going over how to get the overlay in. So it's actually not that complicated. It stems off of this thing that they added, and I don't know how it's used in the actual game. So let me just show you where I'm going right here. So I go versions, then I go 1.16, then I go to the jar, and I open it as a WinRAR file, and then I go into assets, Minecraft. Now you have all these things. So if you go to textures and you go to effect, there is a single thing in this folder. And maybe you've seen this before and you wondered, what the hell is this for? Dither.png. If you open dither.png, you'll see that it is merely this. That's it. So what is this for? I personally don't even know what dither.png is for. It's used in the dither shader, but I don't know if dither shaders are used in the game anywhere. But it does give us an interesting hook in here. So if we go to the dither shader, it should be under program, and then one of these uses it. I believe it's the notch. Yep. All right, so the notch, let me close all my files. So the notch.json and the notch.fsh and the notch post. So what the notch post does and all this stuff, and I have put it in, but I don't have a version in right now to show you what it does. You can test it yourself, but we can look at what it does with this dither and how it gets the dither into the shader. So the JSON does the notch, and it has an aux target. So here's the information we need. So this aux target grabs something that has an ID of dither, and essentially if you put whatever words you put in ID, it looks for a PNG texture inside the effects folder that matches the ID name. And then you give it a sampler name, and you let it know the width and height of the image, as well as bilinear, true or false. I haven't messed around with the bilinear true. You can play around with that, see what it does to your image. Then what you do is you run it to the program, and I have a separate video. If you're getting to this and you don't know a lot about shaders, I have a separate video all about like the basics of shaders, so I'm going to be kind of brushing over those and kind of just only covering stuff that I think is stuff I haven't covered before or things that are interesting. Anyways, so it passes this to the shader as an aux target. The aux target goes into the samplers section. We call this a dither sampler, so you need the same name as here. And then once you get that, then inside the actual FSH, aka the GLSL file, the OpenGL file that is actually doing the shader, the heavy work, we create a new uniform of a dither sampler. And it works similar to a diffuse sampler. It's a 2D image. You go through the 2D image however you feel. So how do we add this to our pack? So what we can do is I already have this resource pack obviously done, but I'm going to take it off and start from scratch so that you know everything that's going on and kind of my thought process, and there will be a download in the description. So let me go to shader over. Okay, so let me call this shader overlay 1. All right, so in shader overlay 1, what I'm going to go ahead and do is you can just make these folders if you want to follow along, or you just want to look at what I'm doing in my download. But we have this textures effect folder, and that's where we're going to put our overlay. I just named it my overlay. Okay, then in shaders, for something that is constantly static, what we actually need is a fabulous shader, something on the transparency layer. So if we go into shaders and we go into post, we have transparency. Let me go ahead and just, I will open these files as a reference in case we get lost, but I will be exploding them. Yes, exploding them. Boom, gone. All right, so we'll work from scratch here. All right, so we go into post, and transparency is our default. Maybe you already have something that does a little stuff and you just want to add this to it. So what transparency does is it throws it to the transparency shader, which handles weather like snow and all that stuff. And then it copies it from the results of that back onto the main. So we go from main to final and then final to main, because you can't have the same in target as out target. So we're going to hijack it. In between here, we're going to have our own, and we're going to take all this information, and instead of running blit, we're going to do my overlay. Okay, you can name this anything you want. And we need to pass it on to a middleman because we can't go from in to out. So we need to go from main to final, final to trans. I just like that, like a transition, and then transition to main. So this kind of passes it in that order. And I've talked about how these targets work in a previous video. So then we need to add the trans target. So now we have to add our texture, or a reference to the texture. And this is going to be, oh, and I lost my reference. That's okay. So this is where we're going to go from the notch, and we're going to copy this aux target section, and boom. So now we have our reference to our texture. Now we just need to give it our own names here. So let's go my overlay sampler. And this is the file name of the texture is my_overlay. You can use anything you want. Any size will work as far as I know, more than 1024. No, that's for later, sorry. So this image that I've created here is inside assets, Minecraft, textures, effect, my overlay. And it is a file size of 428 by 241. I just used this because it looked good. You can use any ratio that you want. By 241. Is that really the image size? I'm blanking. Yeah, okay, I'm just trying to make sure so I don't screw this up. All right, so then that's all good. Now we need to pass this to my overlay, which we don't have. So we're gonna go into Minecraft Shaders program. And what we do typically is blit is our very dumb basic thing. So we'll copy blit and we'll rename it to my overlay, and we'll rename it to my overlay. And then inside here, we're going to want to give ourselves a my overlay sampler. And let me just make sure I named this right. I don't need notch anymore. Boom, boom, boom. Good, good, good. Because if anything is wrong, it's going to be hard to see what went wrong. And then we want to make the fragment run my overlay and just leave the vertex to blit. That basically means do nothing. So then inside here, we don't need color modulate. We don't really need proj matte and matte size, but that's okay. So now we have our thing, which puts, this should just take from the diffuse sampler and throw it onto our GL frag color, and we'll go my overlay. So what we should have now is a shader, and when you put it on and put on your fabulous, if it closes like that, then that means you have an error, and we can figure that out by opening up the game output log, and it'll tell us in the info section what exactly went wrong. So what went wrong here is it failed to load the transparency. The reason is going to be down here. And then it'll say here, it can be a little bit difficult to figure out what it specifically doesn't like. It seems like it's malformed JSON, so we're missing a comma somewhere. Maybe one of you spotted it that I didn't. Here. So we get that little fix going. Hit the F3T, go ahead and hit clear. And then go back to video set resource packs and throw this guy back on. And video settings and back to fabulous. Okay, so once I'm at this stage, essentially I have nothing happening, but that's good because it loaded, right? So it loaded and nothing's happening, which means my injection either isn't doing anything or it's doing it, but it's not doing anything. You get what I'm saying? Like, either it's not, to test if it's working, you can basically just go like this. You can say gl frag color.rgb equals 1.0. So you can just go like that if you want to test if whatever you're working on is working. If you hit F3T, it should just make your whole screen at one color. Or maybe it just wouldn't like that because of my ratios. GL under, oh, okay, sorry, Vec, you need to make it a Vec 3 because we're targeting 3 values. So if we go ahead and put that on and put this on, we can be happy that this is at least coming to this point in our code. So now we have to make the frag color have the overlay. So what we can do is we can make a new vec4, which means it has 4 values on it, called overlay, which is a texture 2D of my overlay sampler at text chord. So this basically just copies whatever coordinates you're at in the draw process are going to be the same coordinates in your texture. So this basically means regardless of the size of your texture, you're going to be somewhere in that texture space that is relatable to where you were in the regular space. So there is my overlay. Oh, and then this last line, I did nothing yet. Okay, so let's just assume it's working. Now what we need to do is change our frag color based off of what the overlay says. So we do g underscore frag color is equal to, and this is where GLSL pops in. This was suggested to me by Derdisco HUD. So we use the mix function. So the mix function basically lets you take color A, color B, and change from one color to the other based off of some weighted value. And we're going to use the alpha. And what this essentially is going to do is we're going to go mix of GL frag color .rgb mixed with overlay.rgb, and how much we mix it depends on the overlay.alpha channel. And once we do that, then the result is we just grab the RGB because we're just going to edit the RGB value. So the frag colors, the color of the pixel you're drawing is going to be a mixture of the color of your pixel you're drawing and the color of where you are in the overlay, and how much it mixes is dependent on the alpha of the overlay, and then just make sure that you're just grabbing 3 vectors because mix could be outputting 4 vectors. So once we go ahead and go escape, and then we go to resource packs and we throw this guy back on, it's kind of annoying that it keeps popping it off anytime you have an error, but it's the best we can do. You're gonna see, boom, uh-oh, notice a problem? Yeah, that's the problem. So our picture is upside down, and the reason for that is the way that a picture is scanned in text chord is top left corner to bottom right corner. It's basically the opposite of our logic in the Y value. So to fix that, we can just do vec2, and we can break text chord into X component and text chord.Y component. And then what we can do to that is throw another apostrophe parentheses, and we just do 1.0 minus because text chord goes from 0 to 1. So this just inverts the Y-axis, and that gets us going the right direction. All right, so that's everything, guys. If you need help, the download to the thing we just made is going to be in the description, and it's very cool. I want to show you a application of it if you don't mind. So one quick application of this is you can actually use it as a HUD to show, say, like a battery life. So you can see that the battery life is full there, and then now you can see the battery life is less than full, but it's not perfect because I have some issues with this shader selection method, and yeah, so that's kind of an application of it. I haven't really released the shader selection method because I haven't been able to use it myself, and it's been a little bit buggy and inconsistent, but because of the new snapshot stuff, I think that I can make it more more consistent, but it's going to take me a lot of work to update it. Anyways, that's it for now, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.